Inequality and poverty are in and of themselves pre-existing conditions.
In some of the early data that's come out, it was saying that Black people in Allegheny County were 2.5 times more likely to be testing positive for these new cases of corona. What specifically can we do as a community to, become safer? If this is obviously affecting us more, affecting us at higher rates.
The healthier you are, the better you would be if you get COVID-19. So try to be as healthy as you can be.
In the face of COVID, now that we're going green, first of all, just be smart and be considerate of other people. Show a little bit more Black love. Show that you care.
Think of others. Let's do this together.
We need someone who is not thinking about the present. We need someone who's thinking about the future.
Every Tuesday since early April, we've had What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know About COVID-19. We brought on doctors, we brought on community folks, but more importantly, people that actually had information around testing and people that had information around how to survive this as a community.
Mobilizing something tangible in terms of awareness is a bit different. And that's what One Hood has been doing. Not only have we been existing in a virtual place, delivering awareness to pay respect to social distancing, but actually being out here on road, handing out masks, putting up flyers that have statistics and data as it pertains to the Black and brown community.
We've been able to, as we transition out of COVID-19, even though we're still in COVID-19, but we've also been able to hit on topics like what Black Pittsburgh needs to know about the protests, what Black Pittsburgh needs to know about defunding the police. And so we've been able to use that town hall as a placeholder to really speak about these are the issues that's affecting Black Pittsburgh right now.
The kind of the next step is civic engagement in that process. And the more informed and the more civically engaged the community is, the better we can respond as an organization and the better the community can respond to the current crisis.
There's so many different changes and so many different ways that we have to now react, to what is happening.
Even though we've been protesting out for a little over a month now, we make sure that people have masks, we make sure that people have hand sanitizer, we make sure that people have water so they're staying hydrated.
To have an organization like One Hood that has credibility in the community, they engage in civic engagement, it just makes it that much more powerful because it's coming from a place of authenticity.
I believe One Hood does a great job about thinking kind of 10 steps ahead, and that's one of the things that sets us apart from other organizations.
This work is so important because our government has been an abject failure in responding to the COVID crisis, specifically for Black and brown people.
So for us, it was really imperative to not only support our community by giving masks to frontline workers, but also provide information for our community, from medical doctors, from professionals, from folks that work in these fields every day to make sure that our community was protected and able to survive this coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Brittany Chantel. I'm a hip hop artist and activist with One Hood Media.
Farouk Al-Saeed, Director of Operations, One Hood Media.
My name is Miracle Jones. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy here at One Hood Media.
Kahari Mosley, Political Director, One Hood Power.
My name is Jasiri X. I am the co-founder and executive director of One Hood Media.
Our new platform for What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know. I'm Dr. Cheryl Hall Russell. I am the president and chief cultural consultant for Black Women, Wise Women, and I am always joined by my colleagues, Jasiri X, who is the co-founder of One Hood Media, and Dr. Jamil Bey. I'm kind of seeing you sideways over there, of the Urban Kind Institute. Y'all, this has been a lot of stuff going on in the last few days. It's going to be a lot to talk about. We're actually going to add on Brandy Fisher, who is with the Alliance for Police Accountability, early in the conversation, just kind of talking about the week that was. And so I'm glad you're here. The chat is always open. We actually are really, really encouraging you to speak up and talk about those things that you're really concerned about or you want to weigh in on, and keep that conversation flowing. So let's go. Guys, what are we talking about this week?
Well, I do want to, talk about the powerful weekend that we had at, for the Get Out the Vote on the Hill District. You know what I'm saying? And just to shout out all the organizations that came together. It was so many. Black Voters Matter Fund Pennsylvania, Black Votes Matter. The Qs were there, the Capitals were there. Alliance for Police Accountability was there. It was just a lot of great organizations. We had food trucks. We had the Mission Continues. It was just really dope, and it was really like a party. We had the Fucking Five Project performance as well as performance from One Hood, but it was all around encouraging folks to vote early. And this was a shop and save on the Hill District, right across the street from the Hill House. And so it was powerful because a lot of people came through and was like, "What's going on? What's this? Oh, hey, you can vote right here. You know what I'm saying? You can register to vote. You can vote right here." So to me, it was really powerful to have that event happen, and to have so many people come through. The spirit was positive. We watched the Steelers game on Sunday. The Steelers won. The Browns. You can't get better than that. And so it was a dope. The Anton Rose Foundation was a part of it as well. So it was just a dope event. A lot of cool people. Veeam was there, we're doing the next one. The last early voting pop-up that we're doing is at CCAC Northside. That's Saturday and Sunday. It's from Saturday 9 to 5, from Sunday 11 to 7. You can vote at the CCAC on the North Side. And so we're just encouraging folks to vote early. You don't have to wait till November 3rd. You can vote early, get it over with, and then regardless of what happens November 3rd, you done already cast your vote, so you won't have to wait in lines or deal with any of those. Lord knows what's going to happen on November 3rd, but you don't got to deal with it.
I heard almost 2,000 folks came through for the Hill District event, and that is so encouraging. We're getting so much early voting. We're going to be with Marin formally a little bit later on, talking about voter education. It's okay if y'all don't know how, right now to do those ballots. You're sitting in your room and you're like, this thing is confusing. I remember the first time I filled one out and I'm like, what envelope goes inside or what? We're going to talk about that. Please, put your questions in when she comes on a little bit later in the program, so we can talk about what you actually have to do to get that ballot together, to get it in the mail, where you need to drop it off. Don't let yourself be intimidated by this process. We're here to get your back. So what's going on with you, Dr. Bay? What's happening in your world?
What's happening in my world? Well, I said I'm trying to get a different perspective on what's happening with this thing. There was a story in the Washington Post today, and it had talked about the 300,000 excess deaths in this country so far in 2020. And we've been talking about that for a while, just what that means, where these excess deaths are coming from in a year of COVID. When you consider that the economy is shut down, there are fewer traffic accidents, fewer workplace accidents, fewer of those types of events. When the country's only counting about 220,000 COVID deaths, which represents about 20% of the world's total, then there's this other 70 to 80,000 deaths. And the surprising thing that they're seeing in that is the biggest jump in that group is the 25 to 44-year-olds.
Wow.
And so it's COVID related. They haven't had COVID tests. They're not calling it COVID, but the important thing about this work that we're doing is that, and that video, that's a powerful video, just a statement of why we have to do this work. One who is jumping on top of this. This is a dangerous virus, and we do not have a functional government to address a pandemic. So I'm here in Barbados, been here 3 days. I have a green band because this is the third time I've been tested clear. And so now I'm able to move around a little bit. Everywhere you go, you get your head scanned. You have to sanitize before you can go buy a bottle of water.
Wow.
We had an interview at the airport with a representative from the Ministry of Health and Wellness explaining, do you understand how serious this is? Do you understand what we're doing and why you have to quarantine until we clear you to move around our island? The people have bought in. They understand the government spent the time to explain to the people how serious this was, what the consequences for failure were. And instead of the joke that we have for a government at home on all levels, trying to scapegoat, what about the economy? The economy stinks because you failed at managing the pandemic. And this failure, so when we're talking about getting ready to vote, getting out to vote, the event at the Hill District, my son was there with you just here, and he was telling me about this, how how overwhelming it was, to his expectations, and just the enthusiasm that people have. If we look, I'm going to say this: we have one goal. We have to get that guy out of the head office. We have to do that, and then we have to get Biden out. But step one is to get Trump out. And then we need some responsible government that understands what's happening. I'm so frustrated with that Democratic Party that this is who the candidate is. This man with no vision, no leadership, other than I'm not Trump. And so, I get a little excited about this, and I'm allowed, because I don't have those relationships with some of these other folks where I can't tell you what my politics are. I think that right now, when you look at this the proof that they're showing you that they have no commitment to a democracy. If you were a Democratic government, you would want everybody to vote if those were your principles. They've shown their ass on that. And so now it's time for us to show ourselves up. What are we going to do for? We don't have to keep playing this game. We can show up and do something different. This commitment to this system that continuously fails us, let's break the chains completely.
It's literally killing us.
Right. That's where I am right now, sure. How y'all doing?
Oh, no, it is. I mean, I think we're in civil response. To watch those numbers go up and half of the states and go up to July numbers. And we're still, we're relaxing, and we don't have a government telling us how serious and significant this is. There's no sense of urgency about this anymore. And guess who's dying? That's us.
Right.
Those stats are not going to change.
And the only platform that the Democrats are running on, we're not Trump. Not that there's a vision for change, that there's a new vision where we're going to respect life, that we're going to respect people. We're not Trump. And damn it, that's good enough for now. But then you got to go. Biden doesn't. He's got to earn a second term. There's no automatic rollover. This commitment to the Democratic Party that we have to change that shit.
Well, we're gonna make him earn it if he gets in. That's for sure. I mean, and this has to be. We talk a lot about that. Like, when he gets in, we're gonna have these demands. This year, if ever, we know what it looks like when it's absolutely abhorrent. And if we can't get behind a platform that we're not hammering those two day and night. I mean, just not being Trump will be light years better, but it definitely is not pushing anything forward for us. And so,
that is definitely goal number one. Let's get rid of that idiot.
Yeah.
And then let's get this old dude out of here who has no vision, no commitment to change, no commitment to a people's agenda. Let's get him the hell out next.
In a couple of minutes,
let's get a candidate that recognizes the times.
Can you give us a quick update on Allegheny County and COVID?
Yeah, we're back into another spike. We're trending up again. Our numbers for the last week were as high as they've been since July. And again, it's the 25. What is it? The 19. That second adult cohort. The not the teenagers. The two cohorts. Those two cohorts. That's where the bulk of them. And it said they're not being hospitalized. They're not, going on ventilators, but they are infecting grandparents and making it difficult to be near their grandparents. And so, it's still time to be serious and vigilant.
Especially with the holidays coming up. That's what's freaking me out. We got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas. Everybody's like, ain't nobody died in the family yet. So,
in some families, right. And so as we're thinking about it, as the weather's changing up there where you are, we have, people are going to be inside and people are going to be, near each other again.
Barbados mess. We're just seriously like, what?
Yeah, he flexed on us real quick. Weather's changing where y'all are. Where I am, it's good. I'm outside. It's nice.
Well, I mean, what are you thinking about that, just serious? These holidays come up, and we're doing all this work, and they're spending all this time talking about this. What's your biggest fear around the holidays?
Yeah, well, I think more so not only the holidays coming up, but also, we're entering into flu season. And I think, Dr. Fauci said the other day something to the effect of we were having his concern was with way too many new cases of COVID-19 heading into flu season. And I think, of course, we want to spend time with our families. I know, Dr. Bays talked about this before, that folks are actually working more work hours during this COVID crisis than previously. You know, I know in my household, you know what I'm saying, both me and my wife Celeste are working more, and we're, you know, making sure that our children are doing on homeschooling. And so it's that desire to want to take that break and spend time with family. But, you know, like Dr. Bay said, we have to be safe, and particularly because these cases are spiking and we're going into flu season, it makes it even more dangerous. And so let's stay vigilant, you know, let's stay with our masks on, you know, and we've been giving away masks at a lot of these voting stuff. Let's stay, you know, with our hand sanitizers, and let's stay vigilant, particularly because, you know, I definitely don't want to be the person that got COVID and the flu. And I just can't imagine what that would feel like.
I definitely got my shot, and I'm taking my kid to the doctor to get hers. And you know, we talked already about vaccines and all of that, and some of our, you know, at least start with the flu shot. We'll see what's happening, you know, with the vaccines. Stop listening to Trump about how awful Dr. Fauci is, because we know who the scientist is. He made a statement yesterday about this is the administration. Don't go with Biden because they believe in science. Okay. I don't know what to do with that.
I missed that one. He actually said something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah, you know, those idiots are going to make you look at science. And I'm like,
it's almost as if he's experimenting. Can I be a bigger asshole than I am and people still support me?
How much more?
It's like how far can I push the envelope? What's the most stupid thing I can say?
Well, I will say this, you know, I saw a graphic yesterday that was really, you know, it was kind of scary to me. It said that this time last year, Hillary Clinton had a 91% chance of winning the election. And so that's just to also say that, like, don't listen to the polls, don't listen to the pundits. Like Dr. Bay said, first priority is to get this, you know, absolute moron, imbecile, whatever you want to call it, out of office. That's priority number one. But don't listen to those polls. Like, we need to make sure we exercise our right. And also in Pennsylvania, if you are on probation, parole, or have a felony, you can still vote in Pennsylvania. And so we want to make sure exercise your right and use your power.
Yesterday was the last opportunity to, unfortunately, to register. But if you did, go. But again, we're going to talk about that later. So we had a really interesting press conference yesterday by our city's mayor on police accountability.
Yes.
And I would like for Brandy Fisher, who at the Alliance for Police Accountability, to join this part of our conversation to talk about all the wonderful things that came forth in that press conference. Hi, Brandy. Welcome.
Hi.
What's up,
all right,
sis?
I'm being exceedingly sarcastic right now because my level of disappointment post that that press conference was huge. I didn't hear policy. When the mayor starts off saying, you know, I had the recommendations over the weekend, but I didn't read them. And first I was like, what? You didn't read them? And then we got nothing but fluff after that. There was nothing that really talked to it. I was listening to the people from the news that were trying to get, you know, more detail. Everybody seemed married to saying that, yeah, the numbers are sideways, but we don't think it's racism, and we should do some training around implicit bias. And I was like, what? So how did you respond to it, Ms. Fisher?
I actually just watched a portion of the press conference today, but I did read the majority of the report that came out. And I mean, I have several responses, and I guess my initial response, because a lot of people didn't know that I was no longer on the task force. And so I left the task force at the very beginning. One, at the prompting, I would say the aggressive prompting of my fellow members in the Black Activist Collective. But also, I stayed long enough to see where I thought it was going, right? I felt that, you know, my personal feelings about what it was going to be, my personal experience in the past at these tables, I owed this new generation the opportunity for change by being present And so I stayed long enough to see what the task force seemed like it was going to be about. I left because it appeared that the group being chaired mostly by Dr. Bullock during my short time there was not allotted the full discretion that it wanted. It appeared that we were being led in a way that, in my opinion, the chair thought that we should go. And in the beginning, that made me very uncomfortable with the process because the people were chosen for a reason. You know, a chair is supposed to help facilitate. The ideas and the vision was supposed to come from the people who were brought together. And in the very beginning, defunding was at the center of the table. At the very beginning, I expressed concern with this supposed to be an implementation table. Mm-hmm. We had 3 to 4 months to come up with some policy changes, is what we were stated. I mean, you know, the way things are written now, I don't see anything saying that we were supposed to come up with policy recommendations. I'm just saying recommendations. And so we were supposed to come up with policy recommendations, and I was adamant about not sitting at a table that was going to walk away with what they walked away with, and that we were going to have some serious policy changes. I was told that this would be an implementation table. The other issue I had was the people who were chosen. Respect, love them dearly as individuals in the work that they do. This is not a gripe by any means against those folks as individuals, but many of the people had very little to no experience when it came to community police relations or policy work, or even being poor and Black living in over police communities, right? At least you can have some lived experience if you're going to come speak to an issue. And so many of those people didn't have that. And so when I see, you know, in my 10 years experience of doing this, when I see a table like that, I know what we're going to get. And so I am no longer willing to be a part of things that are not real, that are not leading to systemic change. Often I have been very hopeful and naive and being a part of this work for the past 10 years, thinking that things were going to happen. But this table looked very familiar in the way that it was selected. And I knew we weren't going to come out with anything. And so, you know, what is the worst thing to me? And this is the epitome of Pittsburgh. And this is why I love coming on this show, because, you know, my board and my org is like, go be you on One Hood show. And so this is the thing that really gets to me about this, is that as Black people, and I'm talking about as Black people, we see what is happening to us. And I don't care if you are in an income bracket of $60,000 or more, and it's not directly happening to you in front of your door, right? Because, you know, this is the conversation that we have to have, is that Black people are not a monolith. And we hear that often, but we have Black people who have never been poor, who don't know what it is to be poor, especially in Pittsburgh, who doesn't know what it is to be over-policed, and who have no idea, and they speak on behalf of the Black community. And these are the people that politicians normally choose to come be a part of their task force, to come be at their tables, to come speak to, you know, to our issues, when they really have no clue. And just because they're Black, it doesn't mean that they're an expert on being Black and poor. And so, and I just want to, I needed to put that out there, because often we talk about representation, and we talk about who people are calling to these tables to make these decisions. And representation is not just the color of your skin. Representation has a lot to do with your lived experience.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're missing when we're selecting people to be a part of these conversations, because we're afraid of the truth. But what was very disheartening to me is to see and hear Black people make excuses for racism, right? Not willing to just call it out, not willing to just say what it is. We want to find every reason possible for gross disparities, but racism. We can't find any other reason. The report clearly said we can't find any other reason for this.
Right.
But we're not willing to say that is racism. Even though we can't find any other reason for this, the data doesn't point to any other thing, but we will not admit that is racism. And that is a problem. We can't come to a solution when we will not admit what the problem is from the beginning.
They didn't admit it.
100%.
They didn't talk about the police. and you know their role in this. There was all this avoidance. It was very sanitized. One of the things that surprised me too was this statement about basically admitting, yeah, we got a lot of people in here that really know nothing about policing, but what did Valerie say? We flattened the curve in terms of us not knowing anything about what we're doing, because everybody was so smart that was at the table. We were able to figure it all out. And what we figured out is we need more data. And I'm like, are we here again? Because this is exactly, Jamil and Jasiri, what we said was going to happen
Exactly.
the day this was announced. This exact scenario was in our heads. The sanitize, don't offend the police, don't blame racism, say that we need more data and more studies, don't put a lot of new resources to anything that's going to make any changes. We knew then.
But do they know, right? Do they know that that's a lie? Do they know that what they're saying is a lie? Right? So and that's what we need to start calling out. Like they know just like we know.
Come on, Brandy, it's 2020. You telling me in 2020, right, with all that we've seen over this last year since March, that you're not willing to say that this is racism and race? The fact that we have to declare that Black Lives Matter, and that in itself is controversial. I mean, and so this is what we're saying when we talk about the what we're dealing with. I mean, it's bullshit. And the fact that, you know, it's sad to see, like you said, Black people who we know, we care about, we love and respect, stand there behind a report that says, oh, we got to study more and get more data, after these same people were saying it wasn't going to take 3 months, 4 months, that we were there to get stuff done right away. We know we got to act. We know what the time is. And we were saying, look, they want more time. This is a stall tactic. This isn't something to really get stuff done. And so we had Peduto do several interviews about policing, which he didn't even mention the task force. Didn't even mention it. He made his decision about policing. He came out and said he was not defunding, but adding more to it. Didn't even cite the task force. And so to then stand up there like you did something, what you did was you collaborated with a white supremacist institution to prevent real justice from coming to our people. That's what it is. That's absolutely what it is. And anything else you can say, you're lying to yourself and pretending with yourself. If we're saying in 2020 where we need more data, like,
well, you know what?
Let
me feed some of these data hungry people some data that we already have. And this is why this pisses me off, because we have the data.
Yes,
right? They want to say we need data. We have the data. Just ask Daniel Lavelle and Ricky Burgess, who just recently put forth legislation to declare racism a public health crisis in the city, right? So we declared racism a public health crisis. There was an expert that they brought in that testified to city council themselves that said that, let me just quote this very clearly. That, oh, sorry, I'm trying to find it right now.
Take your time.
Yep.
They acknowledged that racism was widespread and systemic in Pittsburgh, right? And this is an expert that they brought in who spoke to city council and stated this. And so we see racism impacting, you know, our health concerns, you know, as, you know, that's why One Hood has been out here talking about this pandemic. But we see it impacting our health concerns when we're talking about cancer, diabetes, blood pressure. We see it when it comes to the infant mortality rate. We see it in our educational system. But the only place we don't want to admit that it is in our policing institution, right? That's the only place where Black people are being murdered with impunity.
Yes.
And is the place that we don't want to admit racism exists. But we can admit it exists in every other institution except the one that we want to continuously putting money into. And then the police department puts out their own annual reports every year. They have their own data, right? They don't have the sophisticated way of collecting it and analyzing it. But even with their own data, it shows a very gross disparity in the number of arrests when it comes to the city of Pittsburgh. Just in 2018, Black people being 24% of the population were 60% of the arrests. And we're going to say that has nothing to do with racism. Let me tell you why this has everything to do with racism. It's systemic racism, number one, right? That means we have designed a system in the city of Pittsburgh where we over-police neighborhoods that are predominantly Black. When we're talking about Homewood, we're talking about the Hill District, we're talking about areas that are predominantly Black that are over-policed. And I'm not making it up. Ask them for the rosters, do a right to know, see how many police officers are on duty in these neighborhoods compared to Squirrel Hill and these other areas. They would like you to think that is because of crime, right? They would like you to think that is because of crime. But even David Harris, who was a member of this task force, even David Harris, who a lot of things I don't agree with, because as much as I respect Professor Harris, he lacks lived experience. And he lacks a connection to the community and talking to those people who this happens to every day. And so one thing you can't just rely on is what something looks like on paper and pretend you have the full story. But even David Harris said that the number of I'm sorry, I'm going to quote.
Okay.
And I know he's probably that these numbers don't coincide, right? That just because you have a high number of arrests, it speaks more to the police actions than it does to the number of criminality in an area, right? And so if an area is over policed, if you're riding around looking for somebody with a joint, if you're riding around looking for somebody who doesn't put on their turn signal. The other day I was in Homewood, a gentleman and his son was pulled over because the officer said he turned on his turn signal too late.
Hammers looking for nails.
Right. They use these reasons and then they try to claim that they smell marijuana when he's in the car with his son and doesn't even smoke marijuana because I talked to him after the stop. But, it's this over policing and it is racially motivated. We have the systemic racism where we are planting more officers in predominantly Black neighborhoods. And then we also have individuals who are racist that we know who are members of white supremacist groups. It's not a secret. It's a fact. Look on the FOP website. There is a member, there's a place for law enforcement. Why do you have a tab for your law enforcement members on a white supremacist website? It doesn't make any sense, right? And so if there's not law enforcement who are white supremacists. And so you don't get to these numbers by accident. We have data from the race and social from the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Larry Davis, the Center on Race and Social Problems. Yep. We've had data for years coming out of there showing us the disparities when it comes to the criminal legal system. We have all the data we could ever ask for.
Right.
We do not have the will, and for some of these men in power, the testicular fortitude to do anything about it. That is what we're missing. And it is sad because we have people who are in Black leadership, and I have to give a shout out to Father Tim Stevens, who, has been the foundation of my knowledge when it comes to this work, but who also, as much as people may not agree with his tactics, is always very vocal at these tables about the things that Black people face in the city, never waters it down, right. And make sure it's always addressed. And so I just want to shout him out and appreciate him because he's been doing this work for years. And I respect someone who may not have all the answers or know how to do everything, but is willing to speak truth to power in the face of anyone about what is happening to Black people. But this was ridiculous. And I'm waiting to see what the mayor, Bill Peduto, the mayor of Pittsburgh, in case you don't know who that is, I'm waiting to see what the mayor accepts in these recommendations and implements. But this table was supposed to be an implementation table.
Yep.
When we first got here, we said everybody nationally is talking about defunding the police. Locally, they're talking about defunding the police. It is budget time. It is right now the time for the budget. Tim Stevens said that we have right now, this is the time we have the budget. There was other people in there saying that, but we were steered away from that. But we could have easily come together and came up with a policy and a way to look at where we could take money away from this budget and invest it into the people instead of into police. And because we are relying on filling the prison because it's money.
Yeah.
We are relying on filling the court system, even if it's for a blunt, because it's money and a waste of our tax dollars. And police officers get overtime for sitting down in court all day. You know, we have to talk about what really is going on here.
Right.
It's benefiting everybody but us.
And I will say, I did want to just say one thing, because I do want to get Dr. Bay into this mix as well, is that, you know, I was talking about it earlier today with Miracle, who's our Director of Advocacy and Policy at One Hood. I can guarantee you the one part of this plan is going to be implemented, and it's officer wellness. And one of the things that Miracle was saying, that if you look at the language around officer wellness, it's the only section where it actually has actionable language. You know what I'm saying? Was around officer wellness. And I'm really looking at this report and saying, wow, you know, the humanity that is, I wish the humanity that this report talks about when it comes to officers was humanity that was given to us as Black people, who are often the ones that are victims of police brutality and police violence. We don't get that humanity when it comes to us. And so I can almost guarantee that those recommendations when it comes to officer wellness will be implemented. But when it comes to actually like we can come for that and we could talk about what officers need. And I'm not saying they need it or don't, but we can't figure out whether it's racism that is actually causing these problems. And so once again, a lot of times what happens in these cases, we talk about defunding the police and people come in and they find ways to actually give more money and more resources to police and police officers when our communities are starving, our communities are dying for lack of resources and lack of real support.
Dr. Bay.
I'm reminded of that conversation we had a couple of months ago, I don't know, with Dr. Kumanyika, when he was talking about the history of the Pittsburgh police.
Yes.
And our relationship to the Pittsburgh police, the city's and the state's commitment to these structures. And then, this past week, his comment about these woke faces in racist places. And, somebody like Bill Peduto, somebody like, the folks on city council and, all the people who are on that committee, the task force, like Brandy was saying, I know a lot of those folks, and outside of that space, those are good folks. Those, a lot of good people who want better outcomes. But, in that structure of what police are, what police reform looks like, that can't get this. That structure,
right? It's
designed and maintained to provide access for folks who make money to keep making money. And if that means by hey, well, we're shutting down industries in Central PA, we need, the new industry is the prison industry. Let's keep those jobs coming. What's that economy look like? Let's keep those votes coming. So all these rednecks who are in the state representative's office who represent those constituents, their commitment to this, their commitment to no change, because you're feeding their people. And we need to understand, like, these power relationships. What is our relationship? When do we have that conversation? What's our relationship to these structures, these parties? We're here. What is our commitment to change, real change? Like, how many times are we going to sit through another one of these reforming these racist structures? It can't do what we want to do. No matter how hard I try, I can't get on my bike and ride across the ocean. That structure can't get me there. These racist structures, the mayor of Pittsburgh, that institution, it's designed to make sure that folks who make money in Pittsburgh continue to make money in Pittsburgh. Those folks on city council, they're designed to make sure that that's why there's no people first agenda. And so unless we're ready to say, okay, how do we rethink the goals? What's that conversation? They said a lot of it's just frustrating because you want to lean on the humanity of these people, but they've shown you that that's not it.
And it's not just frustrating, it's hurtful. And I want to end on this. Let's just take the issue of rubber bullets. Because another reason why I couldn't stay on this task force is I couldn't sit at a table while my fellow advocates were in the street being assaulted, right? We're sitting here talking about, police reform while we're watching police officers attack people every day. Right. Like, what are we doing for real? We could pause and say, look at this. If we're human beings, we could pause and say, look at this. We shouldn't have 10 activists charged and no police, right? All these activists charged for standing up against the police, for standing up against a racist institution. But all the police go free, even though the mayor knows that they lied to him, right? And so the section they have on the tear gas and the recommendation, I just need people to understand very clearly, right? They say that they want to hire an independent. Now, all this hiring is happening. They need an independent consultant to look over the data. I have a grad student. I can do that for them if they need. They need to hire somebody to look at how the police are responding to people protesting and how they're using non-lethal weapons. While they were meeting on June 1st, the city used $25,000 to purchase 7,000 rubber bullets, tear gas, and all these non-lethal weapons. Do you know why they did that on June 1st? June 1st was the day after the first protest in the city, which was May 30th. So they then, after May 30th, bought all of these weapons. Who do you think they bought them to use against? They're spending our tax dollars to use terroristic tactics against our own people, against our own residents. We're paying for them to assault us. And I saw it with my own eyes on August 19th at Mellon Park. And so this is why, I understand the frustrating with voting, but the people in leadership matter. When Chief McClay was here, if you've lived in Pittsburgh for the last 6 years, you saw the difference in policing from when we had a different leader over the police. When Chief McClay was here, this department was drastically changed within 2 years. And they're trying to tell us that we have to hire all these people to make the police department different. No, bring Chief McClay back. So let him tell you how to do it, because it was done. And we were protesting then, and we're protesting now, and we're not protesting in any different way than we've been. And what people don't understand is that a lot of protesters are to this movement are new, young, and agitated purposely by people being racist, throwing racial slurs at them. They're not at an emotional level yet, still being in their teens and young 20s. Of course, they're going to respond. But let's talk about what's really happening out here. And let's get out to these polls and vote, because we have to have a leader in office that we don't have to pander to, that we don't have to beg, and that we can show our other Black leadership, these grown folks, that they don't have to pander either. People are so concerned about proximity to what they perceive as power when they don't know that their own power lies within.
We all got a follow up, and I won't say who it's from because she didn't say that she wanted to share, but it was somebody that was on the panel yesterday that said that they did not clearly address that a lot of this was racial disparities. They kept talking about the racial disparities, but we're not sure it's racism. And she did say that the data suggests racial bias in policing and potential discrimination against Black men in particular. And I mean, it was moving further toward, the actual, but still so measured in its tone. And we can't be that measured in our tone about something that's killing us. And I don't know when we're going to stop going on these task force if you can't feel like you can bring your whole self in there, and you can't say what that is the truth, and that you cannot put out in the public sphere what are actual items that need to happen to save people's lives. Stop saying yes.
Yeah.
if you can't do
And
that.
instead say to them, this is not what's needed. Talk to people and trust people, trust young people, trust people who are directly impacted, who are telling you this. And tell the mayor and say, no, a task force is not needed. We will work with you, but we will work with you on implementing this policy because this needs change like yesterday.
And this is not one or two people on a task force. Where were the youth on that? The mayor mentioned them sideways. Tim Stevens did say they were one of the main reasons this thing got pushed, and he acknowledged that. But in terms of numbers, they were not there.
No.
We chose
and
a
the
lot.
ones that were there left because they didn't appreciate the way that they were not being heard. They didn't appreciate the direction that this was going. They left early on, early too.
Wow. All right. Guys, we can do the whole hour on this.
I did have one more question for Brandy, because it's related to voting. Can you talk about the measure around the Civilian Police Review Board that's coming up on the ballot and why it's important to vote yes on that measure?
Very briefly, it's a legislation put out by Councilman Ricky Burgess that is to strengthen the review board. The reason why we're saying yes is one, because it allows the Citizens Police Review Board to do financial audits along with the city controller. So when we're talking about the money and how it's spent, when we're talking about how these weapons were paid for and nobody knew it, not even city council, they'll be able to have audits, which is really good to be able to do. And they'll also have the power to, they already have subpoena power for police officers to come in to cooperate with investigations, but currently the police have not been doing that. And so now if the police do not cooperate with investigations, they can be terminated. And so those are very two real things that are good. And the reason why we said yes to this measure. If we had time and the capacity to educate the entire community on this, just like we're saying the task force should say, we don't want any more of this task force, we would have rather backed up for this and said no, because it's not enough. What we really need for the Citizens Police Review Board is to be completely independent from the mayor's office. But right now we're pushing people to say yes, because it doesn't hurt us and it does help.
All right. Thank you, Brandy. I'm so glad you were available to, help walk us through what we saw yesterday. I was super emotional watching that. I was so frustrated, and I just found myself kind of yelling at my computer. And we needed your level head and your background on this, and so we appreciate you coming in. And I'm sure there'll be more conversation on this moving forward, because it's not ending, y'all, anytime soon.
And thank you all. Thank you all for doing what you do. Black Pittsburgh needs this. Black America needs this. So thank you.
I'm glad you can come on here and be yourself. What did you say? Be your real. We don't want you coming on here being anybody else.
No, because honestly, if Black people in these positions that they pull on, if we all stuck together, we wouldn't have these issues. The reason why these things keep happening and keep turning is because they have Black people who they chose to be on that task force who are well-meaning, great hearts, right, but just not knowledgeable about the subject, and that's why they do it.
All right. So we were making some transfer into the conversation on voting, which is a big one. We're going to be doing that probably every week, guys. We're going to be talking about some aspect of the vote. And so helping us out is Marin Formley, who is the executive, I think, founding director of BEEP, which is a voter empowerment, education, and enrichment movement. We're going to bring her in. We were talking earlier, and she said just emotionally, she was not going to get into politics, but in 2017, she felt led to jump in with, all feet, arms, hands, body, and mind into this. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about Veeam, so we know a little bit about it, and we're going to get into some of the work that you guys are doing and why it's so critical.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Cheryl, Jasiri, Dr. Bay. It's so good to be here. Shout out to Brandy as well, even though she's no longer on camera. Thanks so much for having me on today. Veeam is the Voter Empowerment, Education, and Enrichment Movement, and we are a nonpartisan. So I got my nonpartisan hat on, okay, while I talk with you today. But we are just dedicated to increasing voter turnout in Allegheny County. We wanted to tackle apathy. We wanted to tackle any barriers that were out there, especially for, Black communities that we show up at the polls, We show up at the polls to work. We show up at the polls to volunteer. But somewhere in that, though, when it comes to voting, there's definitely some of us that think that, you know, our vote doesn't have power, which is understandable, you know, in this, especially in this year. But as Brandy said, and as everyone knows, that, you know, we have some local leadership changes that can definitely happen. And all it takes is for us to show up.
Yeah. We're some of the education around this, some of the, and it's not just education. Sometimes we just pissed off. We feel like things aren't changing, like the conversation we had earlier, and we will not draw you into the partisan part of this because we promise not to. But I mean, how do you get to folks who are just overwhelmed and fed up with the same old BS year after year? How do you get them out?
You know, one of the things that we do, I mean, we look at history, we look at what, you know, our people went through. We look at my shero, Fannie Lou Hamer, and, you know, how she and her comrades were literally beat and thrown in the jail, and, you know, legs busted all up just because they wanted to vote. You know, the poll taxes and things like that. We take it from there and then we bring it to now, and we still have a lot of voter suppression methods that are in place. You know, we have, I would say, probably less here in Pennsylvania. We're blessed to have more accessible polls, but there are definitely some places in the South that still do everything they can to keep our people from showing up. And if our vote didn't matter, voting would be easy. They would do, why don't we have national voter registration the minute you become an adult? Why do you have to go a separate step when, you know, you're clearly a citizen, you're paying taxes or whatever it might be, you're here? You know, national voter register, but it's because they don't want to. You know, the system does not want that. The system wants there to be hurdles in place. So again, in Pennsylvania, though, you know, we have gotten and reduced a lot of the barriers. Jasiri mentioned it earlier, you know, about you know, people with criminal records and felonies in their past, as long as you're not currently serving a felony. And, you know, even if you are incarcerated, but just not serving for a felony, you can vote in the state of Pennsylvania via absentee ballot.
So that's one of the biggest lies or myths about the principles of this country, that, you know, one vote, one person, that it's a democracy. Yep. And so I think if we think about that, and you see, just like I said, the efforts that where they exposed themselves completely, the flagrant efforts to suppress the vote is proof that they are not committed to that. And so I think the loophole then for us is to get out and vote. Yep. But after we vote, those folks that we vote for have to be held to account. It's not something you show up every 4 years. You have to be in the ears of those folks. You have to make sure that those folks represent you. And as an elected official, you know, that Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? You're as good as you are today. I recognize you have multiple constituents, but that's not my problem. I voted for you, and my vote, I can take it somewhere else. So respect us. But we got to bring the numbers and then hold these folks to account. That's what I'm saying. This Democratic Party, and you said being black is political.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this party has shat upon us and regularly just take us for granted, and we continue. And that's not saying, okay, well, because we have this ridiculous two-party system and we have no formal mechanisms for holding these folks accountable, that we do it. We don't take up that part of the task. That if we're going to vote, then damn it, you've earned my vote. I'm going to make you do some work for me. You put your ass to work. And we all have to be talking about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell people all the time that, you know, if you were hiring somebody to work for you, you would have a job description in front of you, and you would hold that person accountable. When we're voting, when we are researching the candidates, we are hiring the best person for the job. And then we're doing performance evaluations just like you would do if this was your employee. You're calling them, you're giving them tasks to do, you're following up, and then you're evaluating how they're doing. And if they're not doing good, it's time to get somebody else in there, you know? And so that is what we do collectively, is we have that power to completely overturn the system if we need to.
And I think one of the things that I feel is like powerful about your organization is you all are about every election, voting in every election. We were, I was blessed to be at the ball banquet you all put together. That was really dope. And Fawn Walker Montgomery told a story about how she won an election in McKeesport, I think by 3 votes. And so to me, it's also too, I think, I wish we would get out of the idea of just voting in a national election. It seems like the only time we have a lot of high level conversation about voting, it's when it's a presidential election, when our vote actually holds more power locally. Fewer people vote locally, and we're able to touch a lot of these local politicians. You can see, we were in the Hill District. Jake Wheatley was there. Daniel Lavelle was there. Ed Gainey was there. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like you can touch these politicians that are right in our community. So I also, like I said, I respect the fact that, one of your mantras is vote in every election. And then because, I might be able to write a letter to the White House. I might be able to tweet Trump or Biden, but more than likely, I'm not going to have a conversation with them. But I can have a conversation with Purdue. I can see Fitzgerald or Perdue someplace, and I could see them and I could have a conversation with them, or I could get a meeting with them and sit down and speak to them face to face. And so at that point, that's where my vote has more power. It's locally.
Who's a prosecutor who's handling cases? Who's picking up the phone when you call? Who's not picking up the phone when you call? I hear Black folks sometimes saying, "Well, we elected them, so they got to do what they got to do," and it's that accountability. And most of the politicians I talk to welcome the accountability, with a pretty big exception in this city. But most of them really do want to hear that feedback and that direction. And so, we can't be scared to do that. You don't throw you do your vote and then just walk away. You listen and you watch, because these local elections affect your life on a daily. They affect your children. They affect your kids' education. There's so much critical stuff that happens. I don't know that we've ever felt the presidency impact us to the level that it is now. It's usually not this crazy. And so I know people are really, really engaged with this, and we want them to be. But these locals, that's our day to day. That's our getting up stuff, y'all, that we have to get out and do.
Yeah. Can we talk about these mail-in ballots real quick?
Please
do.
Whew, breaking news. Okay. If you receive a mail-in ballot that has, I brought my orange marker out so you can see that has an orange mark, right on it. You were a part of the 28,000 ballots that were accidentally, printed with the wrong image or something like that. Okay. So if you have already voted and you received one of these in the mail, use this ballot. Okay. It's not clear what's going to happen with your other vote. They said they're going to segregate them because they know exactly who it is that got the wrong ballots. But they have also made sure that every single person a part of that received one of these new ballots, okay? And it'll have an orange stripe right across the top. So that's number one I wanted to make sure I covered. Number two, the actual mail-in ballot. This weekend is the last weekend to vote over the counter over the weekend in this fun way like we did with Turn Up the Vote. Hill District, Turn Up the Vote, Homewood. Now we're about to turn up the vote in the North Side, and Veeam will be present for that too. You can bring your mail-in ballot right in and vote. I have not voted yet. That's why I can show it on screen. You can bring it right in, and you can either fill it out on your own and bring it in, or you can come inside to one of these locations, which is CCAC Allegheny, I believe. South Park Ice Rink. The county office building is always open, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, but also this Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5 and 11 to 7. And I'm missing a location. It's not, CCAC South. And I think there's one more that's out there, okay? It's so important. We got to get this done. But, if you're not sure what you're doing, you can bring it inside one of those locations, and there are county employees who will help you figure this all the way out. We can't tell you who to vote for, and the county employees are not going to tell you to vote for. What they are going to tell you is, make sure you're filling in the circle This is like the old Scantron. You got to fill in the circle all the way with a blue or black pen. Don't come in there with a number 2 pencil, okay? Don't come in there trying to circle or check. Don't do that. You got to fill in the circle next to the name of the candidate, or if you want to write in, all right? After you finish voting your whole ballot, you're going to fold it up 2-3 times and put it inside of this. This is the secrecy envelope. You're going to seal it. It has to be sealed. You can use glue, your mouth, whatever it might be. Then this envelope is going inside of this envelope. Okay, even in person. All right. This envelope. On the back of this envelope, you must sign your name inside this box. The date, people think that's a birthday. That is not. That is the date that you are voting. Whatever the date is that you're putting this ballot in the envelope, that's the date you're going to put. Print your name, print your address, print your city and zip code, and that's it. And then you are good. And then when you are turning it into a county employee to go inside the ballot box, you're not allowed to touch the ballot box, only they can. They should be checking and making sure, and they are checking to make sure that, you know, is this your ballot? Is this your signature? Did you do your secrecy envelope? Okay. We want, you know, as a community, we want to make sure every ballot that someone tried to vote counts. We don't want anything, you know, thrown away or whatever that might be. In person, there's a lot of people who are concerned that, you know, basically they want to go stand in line and do whatever on November 3rd. That's fine. But I just want to make sure you understand that you're going to be getting the same ballot. You're still going to be filling it in and doing the circles, and you're still going to be handing it over to a county employee, maybe scanning it first and then giving it to them. It's the same thing. It's still a locked ballot box situation. Right. Because I mean, we've seen those lines in different states. I don't know who wants to do that. So you know, going downtown, you know, to the county elections office, coming to the satellite elections office is really, it's quicker, it's easier. And I'm just, you know, Veeam, on behalf of Veeam, we're trying to encourage everybody to do that. But we're also, though, planning to be on standby on election day. We are helping with transportation as well. You can call SD Transit to schedule a ride. I know BPEP is doing rolls to the polls. We have volunteer ride shares people who want to drive people to the polls, even to the early satellite election offices. All these organizations, there is no reason why.
Right.
No reason why. I don't want to, I mean, unless you just feel in your heart that you don't want to vote because you don't want to participate in the system, then, you know, bless you. I understand. I'll do everything I can to try to convince you otherwise. However, oh, look, it's the baby. Come on. Okay, he's on the cameras. Okay.
No, baby, vote.
I said, where'd she come from? Oh,
you also have to make sure that, like, for us, my siblings, is 4 of us, and we're trying to figure out who's going to be with our older mother to help her with the mail-in ballot. She's used to going, and seniors usually are. But one of us is going to sit down and make sure that she gets that filled out properly. I'm in another state, so it'll probably be my local siblings, but you know, look around. Who are some of the elderly people in your family who may be slightly intimidated by this process of the mail-in ballot? You really don't want them in line if you can avoid it. You know, take them if you have to, but preferably mail that in. The other thing you mentioned earlier was the number of ballots that went out, 25,000 in this county. The same company that sent out these messed up ballots sent out 50,000 in another, and I won't drag you into this, but it was another Democratic area that they sent out messed up ballots. What's messed up about them is the president. I think your congressional reps are all okay, but they were finding is some of the more local reps, state reps, they have you in the wrong precincts. There, so you have to really look at that. And so when your new ballot comes, be sure and fill that out and get that in. But there were 25,000 of those that went out. So you voted, you know, definitely in the presidential election. But I'm not sure that some of these people are going to get to vote for their more local folks that they were voting for. So that was a mistake that she was talking about, and the correction that's underway. So pay attention to that when you get the little orange line that comes. Please make sure you get that. Correct, Marin? Did I get that right? Okay. All right. Other questions?
woke up. Don't judge us.
We are very open to tell. I've been telling people I do a lot of training. If the baby comes, keep the baby on the camera. It's not bothering me because they're in the pandemic too. Jamil and Jasiri, as you guys have been so active out there in these conversations, in terms of voter education, what do you think is missing? What else do we need to make sure is happening or is out there?
I think there's still that part, and I think Marin was getting to it at the end. Folks who don't feel like they should vote, that they should not participate. As frustrated and as excited, all the words that I get about this thing, that this is the world that we live in, and we have to push that kind of change. And unless we're, it's the ballot or the bullet, and right now they got more bullets than us. And so this loophole might be the ballot, but like you said, I have no problem. I regularly call and text my state rep. I regularly reach out to our city council person, and what's up? What are you doing? What's going on? And like the accountability part is crucial. And so I think as folks who feel like they haven't seen the change, right? We haven't done it right. We've been excluded. We've not really have participated. We've been taken for granted. But I think if the kind of change that we're going to make, it's got to come. This is the most reasonable path. Yep. And we need numbers. And since most folks in this country don't vote, the numbers even in presidential elections, just about 50% of the people participate. And so if we can get our numbers up, we can start to get some of the kind of change that we need, getting some of the people that we want in and holding those folks accountable.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say, don't listen to none of these rich rappers. Like, don't take political advice from none of these rich rappers. I mean, totally different tax bracket. They can afford, what I'm saying, the what we don't. What I'm saying, we're our community, and that goes back to what Brandy was saying about just because you Black don't mean that you understand the experience of being poor and Black, being an essential worker, having to go work, not having PPE, what I'm saying, putting yourself at risk, being afraid to even say you have COVID-19 because you can't afford to miss 2 weeks of work. They don't understand none of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? They do not understand the pressures that the average Black person in America is under. You know what I'm saying? And so we need to exercise that. That's the one power that we have. We just had an organization hit us up that is saying like, hey, can we try to get money to people, to give them money so they can if they can't take the day off of work because of money, that we'll pay these people so they can take off of work and they can have the money to vote. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're facing. Ice Cube, 50 Cent don't got to do that. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to do that. This is our reality. And so we got to vote from our reality, not a reality that we don't live in or don't experience. We have to vote for our reality. And reality is that the mishandling of this pandemic has hurt poor Black people and poor Indigenous folks more than any other group of people. That's the fact and the reality of it. And if just for that, we should be out here at the polls. And so, I would say, no disrespect, but if there is disrespect, take it as disrespect to whatever rapper, what I'm saying, you feel like
I'm certainly disrespectful of their stance. I'm not holding back. That mess has been ridiculous. Y'all gonna not cut my taxes? Their whole thing is when you got wealth, Trump's your guy in their opinion, because he's not, he's talking about tax cuts for the wealthy. And for you to be able to just walk away from the Black folks who've made you wealthy, to take a stand like that is personally insulting. And you can insult them all you want because they should be. But what we have to be smart about and not get stuck with is we know what their motivations are. Ours are different. And so we have to show up and we have to vote this administration out and any Pittsburgh administrations that, speaking of which, we're going to have to start talking about who's running for mayor soon. We just are. I'm not, that's another show. But
it's not me.
You're not of it. It's the three of us.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that, Cheryl. I thought you were going to quote Issa Rae.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Did you see her on SNL?
Yeah, I'm hoping for everybody black. Yeah.
But then she was like, well, what about Kanye? F Kanye.
I missed that. But I'm voting for folks who are paying attention to our needs. And that's what we've got to focus on. If they are spending more time trying to shield themselves from us and put people in front of them to not talk directly to us, then that's not somebody I'm gonna need leading. That's not somebody I'm gonna trust. And that's what you have to think about when you go to the polls. So, gentlemen, anything else we want to wrap with? What's coming up in this next week that people should be engaged in? We heard about this last weekend, voting, early voting on the north side at CCAC, I think on the south side at CCAC, and of course, always downtown in the county building. And so, anything else coming up, Jasiri, that we need to let folks know about?
Yeah, two big things. One is, we're, supporting a brand new mental health podcast. It's called On Tilt, the State of Black Mental Health and Policing in America. It's going to be hosted by Julius Boatwright of Still Smiling and Miss Danielle Brown. And so I'm excited. A lot of people don't know that Danielle Brown has a background in that as well, and mental health as well. And so On Tilt is going to be right here on One Hood Media every Thursday at 12 p.m. And so we'll be pushing the flyer out today on Tilt. Shout out to Julius Boatwright and Still Smiling, and shout out to Miss Danielle. And then also on Friday, I'm doing a voting town hall with the August Wilson Center. And so I'm moderating the conversation that'll feature Latasha Brown of the Black Voters Matter Fund, who's been doing a lot of great work nationally. Jake Wheatley is on there. Connor Lamb will be a part of it. Kiva Clark and Amanda Wilson from the August Wilson Center will be co-moderating. And so that will be Friday at 12 p.m. And that'll be a great conversation. So again, if you want information about voting, what's going on, how to avoid voter suppression, tune in to the Voting Town Hall Why Your Vote Matters. And at the August Wilson Center will be hosting that Friday at 12 o'clock.
Excellent. All right, Dr. Bay, you got anything else?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. This has been a great show.
Dr. Bay got a colada in his hand. He about to have a good time.
Went up his brow, right?
This is my last one for today. I got a picture of rum punch in here.
Oh man, just give me a couple years, Dr. Bay. I'm gonna be right there with you, boy. We're gonna be neighbors in Barbados, brother.
We may be going on November 15th, Jasiri. You better be.
Right. I'm gonna wait the election out, then I'll see what my plan is. I'll be back. I ain't moving down here yet, but I don't know. I voted before I left. I hope I didn't get a mail in with an orange line through it when I come back.
Yeah.
I hope that ain't in the box. But I said we're still working on some really good stuff, and I guess it's probably going to be on One Hood. Jasiri doesn't know about it yet because we didn't coordinate it. But we want to have this public conversation around trust in the medical system.
Yes.
From the perspective of building, what's the medical profession, the pharmaceutical companies, public health, medical institutions, what's their role in restoring trust? It's not up to us to start trusting folks.
True.
We need a vaccine. We need to have trusting relationships. But you who have done the harm, what are you doing to rebuild? And how are you taking specific efforts to take the racism out of your medical practices? What does that look like? And so there's been a lot of buzz, some conversations, some real strong. Sister from Howard put a paper out a couple of weeks ago that's like, I'm trying to reach out, see if we can get her, but I'm working on that. But I think as we're working with Victor, I can't think of Victor's last name.
Mutaba.
Yes. Young brother who's working locally from the community vaccine. I'm so horrible with all these names. But anyway, basically we want to have that conversation. and have that conversation publicly. Because on the one hand, I'm not telling anybody, look, start trusting these folks. I know their history. But at the same time, we need to build a trusting relationship. And, like, what's that look like? Right. How are they doing it? And what's acceptable to us? And I think, I want to have that publicly, which is a lot of feedback. And so whether it's in this forum, but I said that's coming up. That's one that we're working on. We'll tee it up, and whether it's a special spinoff episode, that's one that we want to do, because we might need a different kind of format for that. But now that we have this new technology, this might work. So we'll wrap about that.
It might, and part of that, that whole idea that Black folks are supposed to, fix racism.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, you've been oppressed, and we're waiting on you to tell us what we need to do to stop. Well, I can help you with the conversation, but I'm not in the power seat in terms, and most of us are not, in terms of structural racism. So, right. Being my ally is great. Being an abolitionist of these systems is better. And I think that's really what you're talking about in terms of medicine. And
right, being deliberate about
right,
demonstrate that trustworthiness.
Yeah,
that's based on relationships. That's based on history. That's based on good work. Yeah, and we need to see a little more of that. And so, like, what are you doing to make that happen? So we there's tremendous medical institutions in Allegheny County, but we still have horrible outcomes for Black folks.
Right, I'm getting more reach outs.
What's up with that?
Even nationally, I'm getting more calls around the DEI work that I do around how to talk inside of these medical institutions and the kind of directions that they're giving to patients. And, more and more people are quietly reaching out and saying, we are struggling with this language because we're not being taught how to do this. And we're so protective around our HR that everything is so corporate that they are even scared to even know how to even talk to their patients. And so our health outcomes are a lot worse. And not teaching about it in medical school. They're not in administrative meetings centering equity in their conversations. Some of them are doing it. Some of them are doing it because they're being forced in the conversation. But I don't know how many are actually believing it. So to watch you engage in this is going to be fantastic. Just very pumped about this whole thing about mental health. And, Mr. Boatwright's been on our show. Of course, Danielle Brown has been on. That is life-saving. And so I'm really excited about doing that.
I mean, they're probably going to have a nice interaction. That'll be cool. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be cool.
All right. So we are going to wrap this up. We will be back next Tuesday at 2. We will again be doing some things on voting and other topics. Ariane Abney is going to be coming on to talk about the work that he's doing and his organization as well. So we really look forward to you coming back. Jump in the chat, send this out to other people, spread this conversation out. This one in particular, we really want your feedback, especially around the policing piece. We're not the only voices out here. Black media, support it, add your own voices to it, because the difference between what we're doing and what other folks are doing is we really want to hear you. We want you added to the conversation. We want you driving the conversation because we've got that kind of respect for you. Right. So join us again next week, Tuesday at 2, for what Black Pittsburgh needs to know. We're out.
Inequality and poverty are in and of themselves pre-existing conditions.
In some of the early data that's come out, it was saying that the Black people in Allegheny County were 2.5 times more likely to be testing positive for these new cases of corona. What specifically can we do as a community to, become safer? If it's just obviously affecting us more, affecting us at higher rates.
The healthier you are, the better you would be if you get COVID-19. So try to be as healthy as you can be.
In the face of COVID, now that we're going green, first of all, just be smart and be considerate of other people. Show a little bit more Black love. Show that you care.
Think of others. Let's do this together.
We need someone who is not thinking about the present. We need someone who's thinking about the future.
Every Tuesday since early April, we've had What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know About COVID-19. We brought on doctors, we brought on community folks, but more importantly, people that actually had information around testing and people that had information around how to survive this as a community.
Mobilizing something tangible in terms of awareness is a bit different. And that's what One Hood has been doing. Not only we've been existing in a virtual place, delivering awareness to pay respect to social distancing, but actually being out here on road, handing out masks, putting up flyers that have statistics and data as it pertains to the Black and brown community.
we've been able to, as we transition out of COVID-19, even though we're still in COVID-19, but we've also been able to hit on topics like what Black Pittsburgh needs to know about the protests, what Black Pittsburgh needs to know about defunding the police. And so we've been able to use that town hall as a placeholder to really speak about these are the issues that's affecting Black Pittsburgh right now.
You know, the kind of the next step is civic engagement in that process. You know, and the more informed and the more civically engaged the community is, the better we can respond as an organization and the better the community can respond to the current crisis.
There's so many different changes and so many different ways that we have to now react, you know, to what is happening.
Even though we've been protesting out for a little over a month now, we make sure that people have masks. We make sure that people have hand sanitizer. We make sure that people have water so they're staying hydrated.
To have an organization like One Hood that has credibility in the community, they engage in civic engagement, it just makes it that much more powerful because it's coming from a place of authenticity.
I believe One Hood does a great job about thinking kind of 10 steps ahead, you know, and that's one of the things that sets us apart from other organizations.
This work is so important because our government has been an abject failure in responding to the COVID crisis, specifically for Black and Brown people.
So for us, it was really imperative to not only support our community by giving masks to frontline workers, but also provide information for our community, from medical doctors, from professionals, from folks that work in these fields every day to make sure that our community was protected and able to survive this coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Brittany Chantel. I'm a hip hop artist and activist with One Hood Media.
Farouk Al-Saeed, Director of Operations, One Hood Media.
My name is Miracle Jones. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy here at One Hood Media.
Kahari Mosley, Political Director, One Hood Power.
My name is Jasiri X. I am the co-founder and executive director of One Hood Media.